Okay, we're recording.
I'm going to sniff a little bit because I have hay fever.
Oh no.
A little bit.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, no.
So Jake, you are, I guess after William Delleman, you are you're my guinea pig here.
Second guinea pig.
Yeah. So for those who are tuning in, maybe watching this conversation, I'm calling these COVID conversations. And I've been setting up a few of these with people in our church, and I'm just gonna, Jake and I are gonna have a conversation about what life has been like over the last couple of weeks, and just do some reflection. In this time, we're all like separated by space because we need to be. But I thought one way we could bridge the gap is just by having people share their story and then putting it on YouTube. So we'll see how this goes, and if Jake lets me post it, you'll see it soon. So Jake, what has the last few weeks been like for you?
I mean, same old, same old.
What do you mean by that?
You know what? I don't mind being on my own.
Yeah.
But I'm married to a very good woman who is very social. So she connects with people in various different ways, and I get to hear about it. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, but no, I'm a loner usually. But the things I have missed is John Zelstra and I and another fellow, Winston Elgersma, we usually go out once a week for lunch and a coffee, and that's been taken away from us. So that's an adjustment, and that's too bad. Anyway, yeah, but otherwise, yeah, you know, I'm not very mobile, and so I putter around in the yard, and I read, and I sleep, and I watch TV, and I annoy Joyce. I mean, it's all regular.
So you're kind of a little bit more introverted by nature then, so.
Well, Joyce would take exception to that, says you talk too much. But yeah, no, and there's one other thing that I miss, and I'll tell you what. You know, we go to Costco every so now and then, mostly for our meds, but while we're there, Joyce stocks up. And I married a woman who knows how to stock up. When things are on sale, she stocks. And we have a supply that will look after us for several months. But anyway, what I miss is going to Costco, having a latte, and then watching this, what do you call that? Parade of people, you know, with shopping carts, just going out. And while I'm sitting there, I often strike up a conversation with someone next to me. And I ponder about what these people carry in their pack sack of life, what stories. And I get to hear some of them. And that's very enlightening. And that makes me sort of use that as a way of looking at the whole world. And then I see the billions of people in this world. And where are they all coming from? And what do they carry in their pack sacks of life? And it's fascinating, you know, and it's enlightening. So I miss that. I mean, mostly people go to Costco, you know, to make it, you know, to get something cheap. Right? I do too. I get free stories.
Right. And like, you sort of feel like a rich man, I feel like, after you listen to someone's story. I don't know about you.
Well, yeah, I'll give you an example. I was in Costco last year at a time, and I ran into a gal who used to work in our agency, and she was gorgeous. And now I saw her, and she was just a skeleton. And I found out she had cancer,
Mm.
terminal cancer. And that was very, very sad. And so then I have my coffee and I'm sitting beside a woman and I tell her about, how I look at all these people with their stories and wonder where they're at. And then I find out that her husband was a forester with the Forest Service who came out from Hungary in 1956, went to UBC, the whole forestry college of Hungary, went to UBC, finished their education, and I ended up working with some of them. And that was kind of neat. So I knew who she was talking about. And that was, that put us together. And then I mentioned to her about this gal from my work who had terminal cancer. And she turns to me and she says, I too have terminal cancer.
Wow.
You never know. You never know
Yeah.
who you're walking beside,
Yeah.
And you feel really at one with others. Yeah. Anyway, so those are the kinds of things I miss. But that's why I'm not really an introvert, Joyce says, because I know how to yak.
Right.
Yeah.
And it takes so as someone who leans introverted myself, I find I can kind of go one of two ways when I'm in a big group or like a crowded place like Costco. Although generally speaking, I avoid Costco because it's too big for me. But I can go one of two ways. One way, and this is probably my default way, is I get a little too nervous and then I kind of close right down and I just try to get out as fast as I can. The other way is when I'm in sort of a better frame of mind is I'll try to zero in on a particular person and just say, like, how is your day going? So just try to have a real connection with someone in particular, because the crowd actually scares me a little. But if I kind of focus on somebody in particular, then it's not as scary.
And that's a good opening question for a discussion. How's your day going?
Yeah.
Right? I usually ask people, because there's so many varieties of people from different ethnic backgrounds, how long have you been in Canada? Or is Canada your home? Where are you from? And then we get talking to where they're from and what they've experienced, etc. There's so many ways to connect with people, because most people are really keen to share their story if they know this is someone who is really interested.
Right. Yeah. And I think especially I still go out to grocery stores, and what I'm finding is there's all these gaps between people, and you get to the till and it's almost like it's been kind of a nervous time just to make it this far, because everyone's a little bit cautious and a little bit nervous. And I've been trying to make an effort just to look the cashier in the eye, and say, how are you guys holding up? Because these grocery store people are really, they're
on the front line.
Yeah, they're really serving us big time. So you mentioned a few of the losses you're feeling, just that loss of, they're not huge losses for you, but you miss your friends and your lunch dates. Is there anything else that you would say that, like, oh, this is a loss? I wish COVID has taken this away from me.
No, not so far. I really wonder how long this is going to last, and nobody really has an answer. Oh yeah, I have one other thing. I can't meet with my children and grandchildren. And then I look at my son, who is an emergency doc, and he's the medical director at Squamish Hospital, but he also works in Duncan in the emergency. And, just like these people in the grocery store, they're on the front line.
That's right.
And that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's really tough, you know. And but when they say it's war, at least people are willing to step forward and fight, you know, and serve.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So your
So,
son is he's in the battle then, as a
yeah,
doctor. And
yeah. And
wow.
my children and grandchildren, our children and grandchildren, have said, "Grandpa and Grandma, stay home, don't go out."
And other than gardening in the backyard, you're listening to that advice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. There's lots. You know, I love nature, and biology is my first love. So there's lots of things at this time of year in spring, you know, to be excited about. Yeah,
Yeah.
the world is coming alive.
I know it is
Yeah.
pretty, and it's
Oh yeah.
amazing what I've noticed too is, um, just how like nature doesn't really care what's going on, or we're all nervous about this thing we can't see, this virus, right?
Yeah.
But the flowers come up anyway,
Oh yeah.
the
And the
buds show up
plants
on the
come out.
tree
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
and
The birds are singing and making nests.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the
And
things
for yeah,
one of
and
the
for
things
our
I've been
yeah, go ahead.
one of the things I've been thinking about, like this is a time in like the whole world really where we're all in a way being forced to rest. At least many people are.
Yeah.
Many people are sick with the virus and they're not resting. They're like probably anxious or afraid, or some of them are sick, and some of them are in the hospital. But for the rest of us, we're all just at home. Many of us can't go to work. Planes aren't flying across the ocean. Factories aren't producing smog and pollution. The world is on hold. And I one of the things I can't help but think about is how this is kind of a season of rest for the world, like not just for the people in the world, but for the world itself, for nature. I'm assuming there's a lot less pollution happening right now. And maybe,
Yeah.
we put a lot of strain on the earth, just with how many people live here and what we all need, and trying to, fill up what we all want. And this is sort of a forced slowdown. And I can't help but think that creation is taking a breath. It's getting a chance to rest.
I'm not sure.
You're
I'm
not
not
sure?
sure in this time of, of rest. Are we procreating many more kids? Okay.
Is there going to be a baby boom in
Who
9
knows?
months?
Exactly. But it is also a time of reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the important part.
Mm-hmm.
To reflect on who are we globally? Who are
Mm-hmm.
we as a human family? Who are we as a family of image bearers of the Creator? And what are we going to do when we get out of this? Will this change the way we look at things, the way we value things? Will it allow us, to look beyond our own egotistical positions or our communal positions, as people from a particular race, religious group, or country? I think this will change something in the way we behave. What? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I find myself wondering the same thing. I kind of hope that we learn humility, because I don't, like, as a, I don't know, as a species, like, that we're not all powerful, that there's stuff that levels us in this world. We tend to think we can do anything, and then something like this happens, and it kind of puts us in our place a bit.
Yeah, what I find really remarkable is that we're focused on the cosmos, and what can be coming at the earth that could harm us. We make sure that we have enough atom bombs that we can kill everybody, including ourselves, in self-defense or offense. And then something unseen shows up and makes us all crawl into our houses and closes our doors. You know?
Yeah.
And that is remarkable. And you know, it affects everyone. You know, the good, the righteous and the unrighteous, those that are fighting each other and those that are trying to get along with each other, you know? And all of a sudden, the enemy, and who knows, maybe we'll become like muskox and put our bums together and face outward as a civilization, you know, and say, hey, where do we go from here? Let's take stock of where we're at. You know, who knows? I don't know. And in that respect, I also feel, and I guess this is what I've been wrestling with, you know, is my own faith life. Where is God in this? And I've come to a position where I say, we're in partnership with him. We have been in partnership with him. And where is he? And I'm reminded of a question that either you or Brittany asked the Sunday school kids. And young Joseph said, he's everywhere. You just put your mind to that. Nothing exists without his presence. Nothing. You know? And he's sort of, in a way, hidden in his own creation. And we're trying to figure out, where we here? Why is there a universe? What are we doing to ourselves? You know? So I think this is a time of reflection. You know, I look at people, I have a very close friend in Sudbury that I went to school with many years ago. And, you know, he makes his living by having his investments in the stock market. Well, he's lost nearly half of his assets in the last few weeks. Huh? And yet, those are the questions he asks. You know, where's this all going? And are we going to learn anything from this? You know? Yeah. Yeah. So,
do you have any? You were reflecting about God's. Well, you're trying to make sense of this situation and how God fits into this. What do you find yourself thinking when you think about God and COVID-19?
What I find myself thinking is, where do I fit into this? I wake up every morning with the first few lines of the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples. You know, your name be hallowed, your kingdom come. And then I reflect on this. Your will be done, and your standards of practice. And then instead of outlining to him saying, oh, this is the thing I want to do, I ask him, what is it that you see that you think I should benefit from? Give me an inkling. What is it you perceive? What is it that you want me to do? And the thing I've come up with, since I've been a churchgoer all my life, and I don't mean that just as a goer, it's been part of my life. And so, you know, when you've been raised in that kind of mental and spiritual preoccupation, you don't have to worry about what you're going to do or what you're going to say, you know? And often I look back on life and I say, hey, that's a coincidence. No, there are no coincidences, you know? And hey, where did I ever get the notion to say what I did or do what I did? And then I just carry on. But I think, you know, I think it's, for me, that is really what the Christian faith is about, that Jesus asked us to practice. When he said, baptize in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and teach everything I've taught you. I think the emphasis is on the latter part, not the sprinkling of water. Teach. In other words, fill yourself with my teaching. Fill everyone around you that, you know, in the same way, if you can. And then you live out of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you,
yeah.
What I'm hearing you say there is you're less preoccupied with what, kind of wondering what God is up to,
Yeah.
and more wondering, as a disciple, what does he want me to be up to?
Yeah, and also what does he want me to reflect on?
Right.
He's not out of the picture. I believe very strongly that the entire cosmos is in partnership with him. Okay? I mean, I'll take something chemical. We're mostly made up of carbon. Where did that carbon come from? You know, it was the explosion of who knows what things in the cosmos. Where did gold come from? You try and make gold, you can't make gold. It came from exactly the same place. You know, so the development, the evolving of the universe, I look at now as saying, it was all part of everything that God made to work in partnership with him to make it possible for us to be. And then I look at ourselves, and there is no other creature that comes anywhere close, you know, to who we are. Where did we come from? I look at people, you know, when we come out of church and we have coffee and we all sit around and gab, and I look at the immense talent that exists collectively in that group. And that's how I look at people in Costco too, the immense talent. Mm-hmm. Where did it come from? Mm-hmm. You know, and then now, how can we get away from being egotistical about our talents, you know? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
I always find for myself, it actually kind of hits me, I find, at weddings.
Yeah.
I'm looking around the room, not so much the ceremony, but like the after the reception, I guess it's called.
Yeah.
And I'm watching people talk or dance or laugh, and there's these circles, you know, of people are just. For me, it's a picture of how it's like we're participating in the communion of creation here. Like for some reason, it happens for me very strongly at weddings, and I just get this sense that, like, wow, we were made for relationship with each other and God, and it all kind of clicks into place for me, and I'm kind of overwhelmed with awe at how all this fits together.
Yeah. Now, related to that, I'll share with you something I shared with Paul Stat, because we often have a chat. You know, when I say we're in partnership with God, the Creator, that also is a fact in procreation. If there's a life after death, and it doesn't make any sense to me that there wouldn't be, then in the most intimate relationship that people have with one another is the conception of another human being. Think about it, okay? It's not just another biological thing that is being created. I mean, it's awesome. And so, yeah, anyway, those are the things I marvel at. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that word marvel. I feel like that's the right word. I'm curious about, do you have any sense for your own self? Like what does it look like to hallow God's name, to seek first his kingdom and his will, like at such a time as this? Any sense? Peace?
Yeah, peace. You know, because if you look on life, how much control did you ever have in life? You know, most of my early life, I should say, well, quite a bit. I wish I'd never been born. And when I was 17, I came within a whisker of shooting myself. I had the gun all loaded and cocked, put my thumb on the trigger, and my brother and I shared a room, 2 rooms upstairs on the 3rd floor, and there was a door between our 2 rooms, and each of us had a window. And a breeze went through the room, slammed the door, and it's the only time I've never jumped. And then I sort of reflected and I said, how come I didn't jerk that gun off? And if I had, it would not have been my decision. And then I reflected on the fact, and the next moment, God would say, what are you doing here? I didn't call you. And then I went into the very deepest of depression. I didn't want to be born, and I couldn't get out of it. I had such low self-esteem that haunted me for a long, long time.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so each one of us has our different moments.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then I started looking at the Bible and reading things and saying, why am I here? And when Joyce and I married, well, I was on the road to some recovery, and thank goodness, with her background as a social worker, she's helped me a long ways. But it took me until my 40s to sort of, and I prayed for transcendence, you know. And so it was, now looking back, I'm saying that was all part of the suffering you had to go through, you know, to become the person that you're going to become, you know, with the influence of others. Yeah. Yeah. So.
You mentioned, well, there's a lot that you mentioned in the last 3 minutes that, I mean, some
you know,
of it,
I'm going to be 80 this year, right? Got a jump start on you.
Well, as you were sharing, I mean, I knew about your journey with depression, at least a little bit. I don't know if I remember hearing about your close suicide attempt, and in a way, God's intervention, and then your journey out. You mentioned in your 40s, it was like a prayer for transcendence. What do you mean by that?
40s or 50s. We had a minister here, and that was John. Who was the guy that was ahead of you? John
Heidinga.
And I don't remember correctly but he had, you know, what looked like a a bit of, well, a large naked branch up on, the front there. And he had little green leaves that had been cut. And we were asked to put what we most wanted on one of those little green leaves and then put it on this tree, and this tree came alive. Okay, that was kind of neat. And I remember that I'd been toying with Transcendence. I wanted to see what God saw, I guess. I wanted to rise above my own fears and insecurity and cowardness and stuff. That's been a godsend, because now I can look at myself as part of the human race and not having the human race look at me and saying, what's with him? Yeah, which is what I suffered from before.
Right. So you were gifted with kind of a God's eye view of yourself and of the world.
Yeah.
That kind of helped to give perspective to your view of things.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no. And so that's what I mean when I sit at Costco and I see this conveyor belt of humanity, leaving, that rolls of toilet paper and stuff.
Right. It's hilarious.
But then I say to myself, and what's happening in each of their lives? What has happened? What's taking place? How are they dealing with it? And they're not dealing with it alone, regardless. Okay? Like Joyce often says, one of her granddaughters says, I don't believe in God. And then she says, well, it's a good thing he believes in you. Yeah. So
I'll have to share a song with you. I'll send a link. There's a folk artist called Pierce Pettis, and he has a song called "God Believes in You." I think it's called that. I think it might be. It might have a different name, but there's the chorus is "God believes in you," and I think what I'm hearing you share, I'm like, that song is just ringing in my head, because I think it is somewhat of, it would map onto some of your story, and then also how you look at people and engage people. And it strikes me that, would you consider that in a way your act of witness, to kind of come alongside of people and just try to tap into their story?
I don't know, and I really don't care. One of the things I did find, and this is another wrestle I've had with churchianity rather than Christianity. I had a fellow that I worked with, and we were out in the bush often together. And his wife was very much involved with the Anglican Church. And I didn't know whether he believed in anything at all. But I know one time, at a coffee break session at work, we were talking about religion and stuff, and somebody mentioned Christianity. He says, are you talking Christianity or churchianity? And that really stuck with me. Churchianity is really all about the things we must do. And there's a saying in management, if you can measure it, you can manage it. The one thing that you can't do in church is manage faith. Okay? And when I look at, that's why I come back to Christ's mission for the church. Teach them everything I've taught you. And then what that really implies is, and then let my spirit bring that to fruition. Anyway, that's what the church, in spite of its churchianity, has introduced me to. And so in spite of our weaknesses and in spite of our need to control and all of that crap, you know, the world will unfold the way he wants it to unfold with our participation, good or bad. Yeah. Anyway, so much for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why what I'm hearing is one of the reasons why I picked you first, Jake, because I like how you go where it's a very authentic journey for you. At least that's what as you share it, that's what I experience. I'm getting Jake's journey in that sort of raw, uncut way, and I've always really appreciated that about you.
And you know what? I've been wanting to have a coffee with you for a long time. And
well,
never had time.
I've got my.
You have time. I noticed the cup. Now you have time to have a chat.
That's right.
And that's great. So that's also one of the benefits.
That's right. Yeah, I would say, like one of my questions. What are you thankful for in this? What opportunities has this virus opened up that maybe you are receiving as gifts, or you sense that, oh, this is a what's the word I'm looking for? This is an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I look at our society, our nation, our community. You know, we have neighbors that phone us and say, can we do anything for you? We find a sticker on the gate. The guy 2 doors down. If you need anything, give me a call. You know, it's like we're all coming together to help each other, you know, and all we need to do is to say, okay, what can I do? Well, if I need something, I'll let them know, you know, yeah. So it's like what I said earlier, the muskox putting their bums together and saying, okay, guys, we're in this together, you know?
So it's building like new connections in the neighborhood.
Well, connections that we've always had, but now they've become something more special, you know, but it's also people from church phoning us, friends phoning, you know, people we work with phoning. Mm-hmm. In fact, several times I've tried to phone out and all the lines are busy. Yeah, I've had it twice today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so people are really connecting in other ways because they're concerned. You know?
That's right.
Yeah. So,
I'm feeling that too. That well, there's something when you have a shared experience. Like, well, when I was in Israel on like a study trip last year, our guide was really into taking us on adventures that were strenuous and sometimes kind of dangerous. So he liked pulling us out of our comfort zone and putting us in somewhat extreme conditions. Yes. And why he did that, he told us, is he says, nothing builds community like controlled crisis, is what he said.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're in a controlled crisis right now.
I don't think we are.
But it's building community, right?
Well, it is.
Because it's a shared experience that we're all going through. And so when I go to my neighborhood park now, you know, I can talk to anybody.
Yes.
And all you have to say is, how are you doing? What is this like for you? And, you know, people are looking for opportunities to just share.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can offer encouragement or support. So I feel, although I feel distant from many people, I'm also feeling close in some ways, closer through just all the telephone calls I've been making and just like the seriousness of conversation these days, as opposed to just, hey, how you doing? Like now I'm really engaging people from a distance.
People are engaged with each other.
Now. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not superficial.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I find too is if you really reflect on what's going on, you know, and all these, you talk about controlled crises, but all these things that we've built up for ourselves, our economic system to protect our well-being, mostly at the expense really of others, our military to protect our well-being. And I was just listening on the TV today, and the most important military component in the US is its Navy. And you know what's happening to those cruise ships? You only need one or two. Mm. And, you know, you could be disabled militarily. It really makes you aware of how little control we collectively have over ourselves. And it's time to really reflect on this. And I think we are. Mm-hmm. This brings that around. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, you know, as I mentioned to you in an email, there comes a time when you have to sort of say, how do we re-look at our economic system? How do we really, really re-look at our ecologic approach? How many more people do we want to introduce to this world? And just as they talk about this leveling of the bubble, maybe we should do that also with our population. Now, how do you do that? When
what are you suggesting, Jake?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is difficult.
Yeah.
You have a look at what's happening. The US is being hit with this virus right now.
Yeah.
You know, India is about to get hit. Africa, South America, and those people aren't anywhere near ready to deal with it that the US is, and the US has been
having a hard time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's time that we really looked at that. And how do you do that when we have so many different cultures and ways of looking at things? And mm-hmm. Anyway, so
and that, and you know, one of the things I find myself thinking about, it's maybe a cliche way of saying it, but the world has enough, like there's enough resources in the world for everyone's need, but not enough resources in the world for everyone's greed.
Exactly.
You know, we all, and that's a hard thing, because our current system relies on spending and accumulation. And yes, as long as people are buying things, the economy goes on, people have jobs, people, you know, the stock market goes up, everyone's kind of happy. But meanwhile, the earth is giving.
Yes.
And eventually it will say, and I can't give no more. You guys have to rein it in. And anyway, I think about that. Because I don't know. I find population control talk to be kind of scary, actually, whenever I hear people talk about it.
Oh, it's not scary. It's we don't know how to do it.
Right.
Because, you know, I mean, you can't neuter everybody that you run into.
No.
Like you can your dog.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
No.
But I mean, it's a live question. I hear what you're saying. Like, this world it feels like it's starting to get pretty full.
Well, and I don't necessarily agree with your saying there is enough for our need, but not for our greed. I'm wondering if we haven't surpassed the need. You know, I'm going to relate to you a story my dad told me when I was 8 years old. He went to Indonesia in 1935 when it was a colony of Holland. And he ended up on the island of Sulawesi in the northern part, which is mostly Christian. And one of his jobs was as an economic development officer. So we asked for an audience of all the small hamlets and towns, the leaders of those towns and hamlets, and got together with them. And then he was trying to impress on them that they had many skills, and they should maybe consider a cottage industry, pan for gold, etc. And when he was finished, one of them got up, and the oldest one of the bunch, and very politely said, Tuan. Now, Tuan is the word for Lord. If you spell it with a capital, it means God. Okay? So whites were addressed as Tuan. I was Tuan Kachil, small Tuan. Okay? But anyway, he got up and he said, yeah, we hear what you say, but why would we do this when everything we need we have? Okay? Now, at the same time, Rockefeller, the richest man in the US, was asked by a reporter, Mr. Rockefeller, you're a very, very rich man. How much more do you need? And he said, just a little bit more, thank you. Now, I don't think either position is a good position to have, because we live in a developing environment and we live in a developing civilization. Nothing is static. But as an 8-year-old, that stuck with me. Yeah. And I often ask that question myself, how much do I need? Yeah, but if we just looked after our basic needs, then would we have made the scientific advances that we made, the medical advances that we made, etc. Yeah. And so, and that's where I found Christ's teaching really difficult, where he says, the road that I'm asking you to walk with me is narrow. You're either on it or you're off it. Yeah. Yeah, we're on an interesting pilgrimage.
Yeah, I wonder if these, this experience will rearrange our values and our possessions. Like, will rearrange how we think about how to use our money in the future. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be, well, people will be, I don't need that. Or, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts our society's view of money going forward.
That's right. And now the question I have for you, my friend, where's the church in all of this?
Where is the church?
Locally, the church locally, the church globally. And I don't know if there's an answer.
I don't have an answer for the global church. So I'm part of a pastor's Facebook page. So there's about 1,000 Christian Reformed pastors that are part of this group, and there's discussions that happen frequently. And you would not believe, Jake, the innovation that is taking place by church leaders right now.
Yeah.
And I find that very exciting. And we're calling each other to, higher and greater things, asking the fundamental questions. What does it look like to witness? What does it look like to seek first the kingdom of God?
Right. We're
looking in our past of various times in history where the church has stepped up in times of plague or pandemic. And so much of the healthcare system that we have today was built by Christian people that said life matters, health matters, and we're going to pool resources to create hospitals.
Exactly. Yes.
And I have, from what I see just from the conversation that's taking place and the excitement and the innovation that's happening on the local level, I have a feeling that, not all churches are rising up, but many churches are seeing what's going on, and they see this as an opportunity for creative witness and an opportunity to be sort of a blessing in the city that or place that God has placed them.
Yeah.
Like I've been thinking about that too, and one of the ideas I have, maybe I'll bounce this off of you, but when this all starts to wrap up, I feel like it'd be fun to have some sort of bless our city initiative, specifically economically. So I don't know, we have like a VCRC eats night or something where we just, everyone, partners up with another person or couple, or, take groups of 5 or 6 and then go out to these restaurants that have been really hit by the virus. And anyway, the idea of the event would be, buy a meal, spend some time together, but then just leave a huge tip, just like astronaut, just like $100 or something, or $150 tip, maybe with a little note saying, we care about our city, we care about you. Thank you for serving us tonight. God bless VCRC or whatever. We don't even have to put our name on it. We could just do an act of economic kindness to people who've been out of work, to businesses that are, teetering on the edge of, can we make it? Can we continue? Now that's just one idea I had of how to engage this creatively in our own context. But I'm actually mostly excited, less about the gathered church and more about the scattered church. Like I'm excited about the conversations that you're going to have with people at Costco after this, or your neighbor down the street who left you that nice note. And for me, I'm excited about the conversations I'm going to have at my neighborhood park with all these acquaintances that I've, made over the years. And I think that's where the real ministry has the potential to happen. I think we could do stuff together as well as a group, a gathered group, but those relationships we have in Victoria, and really leaning into them and seeking to show God's love in the midst of this. That's what I'm excited about.
Well, the challenge which you're really putting out as a church is for us to recognize that Jesus said, you are the light of the world. And he didn't mean us all clustered together in a church. He meant us as individuals, and just operate from your authentic self, in partnership with God. Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be conscious.
Yeah. And what you said earlier about not controlling, that is a truly liberating part of, at least the tradition that we're a part of, is that God invites us to be authentic, and to be loving to neighbor as we seek to do God's mission. But the results are not, we can't control those, right?
No.
And all we can do is show up and seek to be a partner with God in the midst of whatever God's put in front of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what gives me peace. Yeah. By the way, there's some other people that I really admire now. And those are the people who were willing to stand for office, in strata councils, in our communities, in our province, in our country. And they're all facing together the issues that are confronting us. Mm-hmm. And that's huge. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Well, I think Yeah, I think about our elected leaders a lot right now, and that Bonnie Henry. I mean,
No,
she's probably working from 5 in the morning till 11 at night, and
but there's
she's
an authentic person.
yes, we are.
Says it the way it is without
Yeah,
drawing any attention to herself,
yeah,
totally preoccupied in the well-being of our society.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
no,
are blessed by her for sure.
yeah, and so many others.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah, a lot of heroes. That's good.
well, you're only finding out that we've been living with him for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
Well, what else? Is there anything else you want to talk about, Jake?
no. I could go on and on about things, but I think
Well,
I've done my share of yakking.
yeah, we've been at it for about an hour,
Yes.
but it's been really good to chat and hear what this has been like for you and what you're find
Yes.
yourself thinking about. You did share quite authentically about a lot of parts of your journey. Would you be willing if we
Oh, sure.
shared this on the web?
Sure. If they're of any benefit to anybody, sure.
Okay.
You know, and you know what? They're not special because of each one of us looks deep inside of ourselves. Hey, there's been a lot of suffering,
Yeah.
as well as a lot of love that we've experienced in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And you're sharing it will give people courage to share as well, you know.
oh, I think it's important. I remember, when this is my last story.
Sure.
I was in grade 9 in high school in Toronto. And one of the requirements was that in the fall, you had to make a speech. And in the spring, you had to, the spring term, you had to do a book review, an oral book review. And then before the end of the year, you had to participate in a public debate in the class. Anyway, so this is grade 9. There are 19 nationalities in my class of 37 students. Okay. And so one of the criteria that we were marked on is how well we maintained the interest of our audience. And the other one was 50% of your mark was your ability to deliver without reading. So I delivered my talk about my experience in Indonesia after the war and before we came to Canada, when there was a revolution for independence in Indonesia and the whites were the targets. And it was very traumatic. I remember writing this out. I remember shaking as I read it out and reading it from one end to the other. And then I heard from another class friend, who said, well, Miss Henderson said, we had this guy and he had everyone's attention. And then he read it all. And what I realized later on was I was able to get it off my chest verbally.
Yeah.
I can now talk about these things without shaking.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuck with me. So I got 50% in that speech.
Yeah, 50% from your teacher, but you got more than that.
Myself.
Your own.
Yeah. And what made me do that? I have no idea. But it sure helped. Anyway, and that's what I think is important about sharing your own story.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to share it, no matter how traumatic it has been. That's part of our life's journey. And it's also part of what we owe each other to share.
That's right.
You know, you said life is a relationship. That's what it is. Yeah.
Well, Jake, thanks for sharing with us and with me. And I look forward to giving you a big, real hug, you know, when we can meet next. And hopefully we'll have a church service sometime in a little while. But until then, we'll perhaps talk on the phone sometime soon. And yeah, we'll talk later.
Hey, forget the hug. It's the coffee I'm after.
No. Okay, well, I can give you a hug after the coffee.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, take care.
All right, talk to you later, Jake.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye-bye.